All right, boys, we are back with another episode on the GT100. Just a little recap. We've got a 2016 Mustang GT Performance Pack underneath this 1962 Ford F100 Unibody. It was channeled section, shortened, and basically fit on top of that 2016 Mustang chassis. So got some work done off camera, been cracking around a little bit. Let me catch you up. All the seam sealer, back patch panel, that stuff's in. Cleaned up the back wiring a little bit. We started kind of working on some of the switches and whatnot in the interior. So let me show you what we got here. This is headlight switch. We've got an appointment with the interior shop tomorrow. So they want to just take a look at it, kind of give them an idea of what I want. We're going to wrap everything in some light foam and upholster it. So I want to kind of get stuff as close as I can so they have an idea. So come July 1st, I believe, we're going to start doing upholstery. So what did I get set up for them? Started kind of mounting switches. We've got all our headlight controls here. One of the big things we wanted to work on, let me squeeze in here, is this guy right here. This was originally mounted on the steering wheel, and it controls all of the gauge functions for the 2016 Mustang, which I want to retain. We can switch through and do line lock, launch control, 0 to 60, track apps type stuff, if you guys are familiar with Mustang stuff. So you can get 0 to 60 times, 60 to 0 braking, lateral G's, a bunch of that modern stuff I want to retain. It's gonna help us switch through our steering wheel control feel. It goes, sport, comfortable, whatever, different modes. You have your traction control on, off. All that stuff is still integrated into the modern gauge cluster, so I want to cut that down and use it for this truck in our gauge. But to do that, we have to use this switch, which was mounted in here. Clearly, I don't want to keep this steering wheel. I've got a surprise for you guys. We had the steering wheel come in, so I'm going to show you guys what we're going to use instead, but I can't use this type of controller to use the factory gauge cluster. So where am I going to put this? I want it to be best place possible. I came up with just kind of down here in the console. This stuff's all rough cut, but let me see if I can do this with one hand here and kind of squeeze this in, and this will all be reupholstered so it'll clean it up once the interior's done. But it's going to be basically in here, so it'll be out of sight, not real bulky or gaudy, and it'll just have a nice little switch control panel here where I can have my hands on the wheel, move right down right next to the shifter, and control all those functions. I think that was a good solution for this switch. We have to get out of there. We have to rewire this because the wiring is up in the steering wheel, and now we need it down in the console. So we're gonna get through that today. We'll pull this wheel off, wire everything down through here. We also wired in our gauges here, which are vacuum boost, and then this is oil pressure. So we still need to build a little bezel to make this look all smooth, but I did run the wiring down in through here, so this is functional now. We need to extend the wiring right here, which is going to run up to this sensor, which is getting mounted right here up on the dash. That is for, what's up, dude?
Hi.
So you going? Okay, be back at 2. Love you. That sensor is our headlight sensor, so it'll turn on automatically depending, the light. If it's dark or starts to get dark, my headlights will automatically turn on. So that's a cool factory function we're retaining. Need to extend wiring up there because I have to go around this HVAC plenum ducting, which we also have to build some kind of plastic structure that's going to run into our old dash. So when we do all our factory HVAC controls, it's going to run through the old dash. What else do we got in here? That's pretty much it. I did get a bunch of parts in, so I got to show you guys what I got. The old dash is here. We know we've done a bunch of things with it. We had to cut this down, put a little B-roll in the end. This will all be wrapped up too. This is the HVAC plenum. You can see this is where we connect into the factory stuff. I'm going to end up cutting it down, cutting all this down, and then building. This will get attached under the dash, and then we need to run some type of venting off of these arms that are cut down into this factory dash, which will be right here. So have some little vents you can see up in there that'll attach to the dash. We can run ducting from the 2016 Mustang ducting system into the old dash, and then everything will work good. Mainly, I mean, we're just going to go through these two vent holes up here, but the cab is a lot smaller in the truck than it was in the Mustang, so whether it's heat, air, whatever you want, you're going to have a lot of heat and a lot of cold regardless. So just out of those two vents, I didn't want to put a whole bunch of vents all over the place and make it look gaudy, so I want it to look, you know, old truck, modern stuff. So mounted the tweeters in the dash here and the dash over here. This old F100 dash, some of you guys know they had, you know, like controls. I think they had HVAC controls, little pull levers in here, so it was a good spot to kind of drill those out and attach these tweeters. This is where the gauge bezel is going to go, and we know we need to put the factory Mustang stuff in there. So how are we going to do it? This is kind of what it looks like from the factory. Not a good option. There's other dashes. This is what's considered a slick side unibody. If you get up to 67 to 72, they're bump sides, and I've built a few of those. You can make the dash look real cool by running plexiglass and it's all open and cut it down. I've got a bunch of plexiglass that I'm going to use to integrate the modern dash, but it's a little bit more unique, so I can't really use this because there's just two big pods and then a information little center in the middle that will control it with that little switch we mounted. It's not going to fit into here good. If I cut this out, it's going to still, it just won't look right. So what were my options? I got some parts in. You guys got to check this out. So it's pretty sweet. Got this stuff in. Here is the gauge bezel that we're going to run on the truck. I'm going to call the GT100. So as you can see, this is real carbon fiber, so I'm super stoked about that. This is gonna look absolutely ridiculous. I've bought parts from these guys before, Muncie Speed, really cool stuff for trucks. So, and this is real carbon fiber. The downside of having this real carbon fiber dash or gauge bezel is I got to cut it down and have to have some precise cuts and measurements because I need two circles and a little information spot in the middle, and I got to cut into that carbon fiber. I do not want to mess that up, but you know, we got to do what we got to do. So we're going to measure about 40 times and try to find something good to cut into that where we don't jack it up, but we'll see how that goes. So the Mustang cluster, I kind of started breaking it down, and you can see I just put in here so it didn't get all dusty, but I broke out the little glass covers here. We're gonna cut this thing completely flush because we don't want these big parts sticking out here. So this is all completely flat from the two gauges to the information pod in the middle. And then we're gonna run, here's some acrylic. I decided to get Lexan because it's a lot more scratch resistant, really clear. It's almost like glass. I'm gonna use that instead. A little white sheet up there we'll cut down and have this completely flat, attach our Lexan to it, and then we're gonna cut two holes in that insert hole here. This mark just for this information center where we can do all those cool factory modern functions, and then another one here. Run glass apart, and then we're going to epoxy it to the back of that carbon fiber dash. That's the plan. I think it'll look really dope if we make that work right, but we'll see. I'm a little nervous because I don't want to cut in and mess up that carbon fiber dash because it was not cheap, but I think it's worth it. So what else did we get for parts? We look in the cab and it's like, what is the one thing sticking out right now? Obviously this big clunky factory steering wheel. We are not going to retain that. So I decided I kind of wanted to keep with the Ford racing theme, not get too far from factory stuff, but I want it racy. So check this out. This is our steering wheel. It's a Sparco Ford racing. It's got Alcantara. I think it's really sporty and looks real nice, but it's still a Ford racing product, Ford performance. And I think it'll still add to F100 vibe of this truck once we put this in. So we're going to get this bad boy mounted, just see how it looks. The shift knob, we're also going to have a Ford performance shift knob to kind of take away from that more modern one that's in there and just kind of keep with that vibe. So I think with all this stuff kind of coming together, it's going to look really good. So, but like I said earlier, we have upholstery to do, and I want to get some of this stuff kind of finalized for them. The big one's the dash. We want to get that mounted in there. And to do that, we've got to get the HVAC plenum set up. So that's what we're going to get started on, cutting down the HVAC, getting it mounted to the dash, get the dash mounted. And you can see we cut the sides off because this had to do a lot of cutting here, chopped a lot of the bottom off. This will be capped, and then we can mount it in there. Once we get it all perfect and the HVAC plenum and everything's attached, the ends are capped, we'll weld it all in on the back here. So weld it in the back, all the sides, so that dash will be permanent and affixed to this modern interior that we're going to make look old school. So that's the plan for today. Let's get the steering wheel, let's get the dash. So let's get going. Alright, got the tubes mounted, cut down plenum. I'm not sure how we want to do this. Obviously, this is way too long. Yeah. Alright boys, so we are working on the ducting here. Plan was, cut this down, which is, you can see we did. Have our two openings here, mount that on there, and then we were going to run our tubing here into the brackets into the dash. Well, a little bit of issues is you can see how big this vent is. You got these two gaps here, two holes here in the front and then the one in the rear. If we fit this over the top, I kind of realize this, but it's only fitting these two front holes in the plenum. I don't know what was in the back part, but when we adjust the different HVAC settings, it will completely isolate, you know, from the front to the back and vice versa and whatever. I want to have all this entire plenum system contained in one box that we can run the tubing off of. So if you hit any setting, you're going to get heat, cold, whatever. It's not going to, you know, if we just mounted this and we hit a setting that only hit this vent, I don't want nothing coming out of the vent. So being we're integrating a bunch of different vents into one, I want to have all of this into one enclosure. So I started kind of thinking about it, and I've got a plastic welder. We could build a box and then, you know, fit the whole thing and move all plastic. But then I had an epiphany. I think we can use some of this Lexan. So we're talking about Lexan for the dash, and we're going to integrate the gauge cluster and whatnot just for a screen. But this stuff heats and bends really good from what I understand. I've got enough of it. I'm only going to need, you know, a little bit of this to cover the gauge. So I'm thinking I'm going to cut a piece off of this, or maybe cut this thing down, find out how much I do have to have for my dash, make sure I don't use that. But then the rest, I can basically make a box out of this Lexan, heat and bend the radius, and completely cap off a box that's nice and low. And then we can just drill in the hose and run it into the dash. So I think that's the best option. We'll see. Let's start getting some measurements and maybe just build a box that we can epoxy together, and then it'll be a nice low profile box that takes all these vents into the ducting. That should work. Around the corners, if I take all this foam off, we're not going to need this anymore. I'll just seal our plenum right to this, so that'll work. So here's the plan for the plenum. We've got the plexiglass here. Our Lexan, we're gonna run this here, build some little stanchions here, heat it up, wrap it around here, and we're gonna have this 2-inch perimeter all the way around this. Flip it upside down, we'll epoxy that edge and then drill 2 holes, which will connect to these tubes, which will connect to the dash, which we checked a bunch of fitment stuff for. So let me get you guys on the video on the stand and we'll do that. Bo, what are you working on? You clean your monster truck? You being shy? You want to talk to the camera? What you working on?
I am cleaning my monster.
Cool, man. Looks good. All right, fellas, well, she's not real pretty. Let me give you a look here. But this is going to be out behind the dash and everything. I just wanted it to be structurally sound, so this will be the nice little box for the plenum. Kind of put some epoxy in. Once this dries and everything is set in place, the right dimensions, we'll probably just get seam sealer, seal the edges, everything real tight, so I know I'm not going to have any air leaks. We'll flip it over and then drill the hole here and here. But overall, yeah, I mean, that works. It serves its purpose. So not super pretty. I did realize heating and bending this Lexan, luckily I've heard you could bend the stuff. This like bubbled up really bad. So that's kind of interesting. Luckily for the gauge cluster we're building, I'm not going to have to really heat up and bend this stuff, but it bent really easily, formed up nice. It's super rigid. Alright boys, so we're on the steering wheel. Let's get this old factory one off. I unplugged the plug that runs into the steering column. This is the one wire we're going to need, or plug, for our controls for all the dash stuff. So let's take this big bolt out. This is unplugged. I should be able to fish this all out, and then we're gonna trace these wires through here and then reroute these back down through into the console where we can mount that. Let's see what we can get done. All right, well, we got the steering wheel off, and I want to go over something real quick. I actually found was pleasantly surprised. Let me show you what I was kind of worried about, because with these modern vehicles, we have a clock spring, which is right here. It kind of rotates. You can see it. The problem with the clock spring on this car is it has like this steering angle sensor and a bunch of other sensors and stuff attached to it. So usually when people put in these aftermarket steering wheels, they remove the clock spring completely. I was worried in the Mustang because I have this switch we were talking about. We have to integrate this, which is all in the steering wheel. And as I was looking at those connections, you could see they were in the clock spring. The clock spring went around, and I had multiple plugins. And a lot of modern cars, not only do they have obviously controls like this that could be integrated in the clock spring, they have the steering angle sensor. Can't remove that or I'm gonna get a bunch of other issues. So I was kind of wondering how this hub was gonna integrate, and am I gonna remove it or what was gonna happen. But the beautiful thing is the way the hub is built is the actual clock spring clocks and attaches into this hub. So I'm not gonna have to remove the clock spring. I pulled the wiring harness out of the wheel. We'll go down and pull in. We need to, this is obviously the main plug-in. This is the only one we need. So I may strip this down a little bit, but this can remain plugged in. And then I'll route the wiring up under the steering column. And it actually has space for the big plug and everything in here. And the clock spring comes in here. So we should be able to attach the hub, and then we'll have our quick disconnect here, and then we'll attach our steering wheel. So let's keep working on that. All right, looking pretty good. Man, the seating position is perfect. Turn the wheel, full lock. Not plenty of space. Quick disconnect. Comes off pretty quick. On easy. Man, this thing looks sick. So yeah, I'm super happy with this. Looks good. Obviously we'll have caps all here and this is all going to be contained. So this looks really good though. I like it. I like it a lot. Let me show you guys what else we've been working on, which is this HVAC ducting here. So I built this little plenum extension. I was trying to use the factory stuff. It just wasn't going to work. It didn't make sense. I got this plastic. I kind of wanted to heat it up and round the edges and see how that worked because I've never done it before. It's not going to win a beauty contest, but it serves its purpose. So this is just kind of set over the top of this. Got the holes drilled in it for the tubing that's going to run into the dash. I'll epoxy this to this whole vent surface, but it serves the purpose of what we wanted. All right, so the other thing we've been working on is, again, in the HVAC, we've got these ducting units here. You can see I've got my amazing fancy clamps here. This has been sitting overnight. Let's just epoxy these in nice and solid. We'll probably apply more epoxy now that it's kind of firm, but this is going to give us these vents here where we can run our tubing from our vent ducts there into there, and we'll epoxy there so it's all airtight. So I think that will tidy up all the HVAC stuff we've kind of been trying to do. Got the steering wheel in. We've got to get this dash in, set, permanent, fixtured in, extend the wiring for our switches that we just took off the steering wheel. We'll run those down to the new switch location down there, and keep going. We're really making good progress. I talked to the upholstery shop yesterday. Guys are super stoked on the truck, so I'm excited for it also. And we pushed the dates back a little bit till August, so that's good. I think I can start to get for sure all the fabrication done and start body working, getting all the gaps, which I don't enjoy doing. Takes a lot of time, but we got to do it to make everything clean. So we'll start working on that, and then we're gonna paint this thing. So let me know what color you guys are thinking. I'm leaning towards what is it called? It's the factory Mustang color. I think it's called Deep Impact Blue. So let me show you why I'm thinking Deep Impact Blue. It's a factory 2016 Mustang color. It's a really pretty blue, metallic, dark blue. But mainly, here, let me one hand this here. The reason I want to use that is the engine compartment has that color. Obviously, this is just like overspray. This isn't the exact color. This is more of like a purplish. And the Deep Impact Blue is a lot deeper, richer color, and this is, like I said, just kind of overspray. But because this down into the firewall or into the fender wells here is that color, I don't want to do something too drastically different than this because I don't want it to be two colors. So we'll tape all this off and probably spray all this in the new color, and then we got to build our patch panels in. You know, we'll build one here, try to make some bead roll designs, run a long one across the top, and then again over here, and that's all going to be painted the same color. So I'm thinking Deep Impact Blue, but I don't know. I'm not set on it. I'd be good with anything probably a bluish color. So let me know what you think. Mainly because I want to match that engine compartment that's already painted, and I like that color. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. But anyway, let's keep cracking. Let's get that HVAC finalized and get that dash going. All right, so we're working on the plenum AC box here. Got the box built out of plexiglass, painted black, and attached our ducting hoses, epoxied or seam sealed the circumference of those hoses so they're all airtight. Same thing with the air box, so that's airtight. I also extended all the line we needed the controller for all the gauge cluster stuff, as well as the headlight sensor, some other various things. So what we had to do, let's take a look, is in here. Once we replace this steering wheel with our new one, our control unit that is down here now, it's going to be recessed in that little gap. All that wiring had to be run down and loomed down through here, around and up through here, so this controller will work down here. We extended our gauges, our vacuum and boost, as well as our oil pressure, so that gauge cluster will sit down here. And then we also extended this guy up here for our automatic headlights. So I definitely want to give that a shot to make sure everything works. I like to do a few things at once and then test everything to make sure if we have any issues, I can address, you know, singular things and not like 20 things I did and I don't know which one's causing the issue. So let's fire it up real quick, pull it out, make sure we'll pull our gauge cluster out, which is it's kind of been pulled apart a little bit. So I got to be really careful not to mess up my needles and whatnot. But we'll start her up and make sure everything's working. We're able to switch through the functions on that dash with our new switch we've got wired here. So let's give her a shot. Oops, I guess I need a steering wheel. Ah, that would help. Where'd I put it? So I don't know if I've mentioned it to you guys yet, but the cup holder has all the theft stuff here. So if your cup holder is not connected, you are not going to be able to start the car. It will say it doesn't recognize the key, which is another good point why I do a few things at a time and then check them, because I did a bunch of stuff and the car or the truck wouldn't start and I could not figure out why. It turns out that cup holder needs to be plugged in to recognize the key. So this is our cluster we cut down. I took the glass off of it and eventually we're going to flatten this all the way out and then put some Lexan over it and mount it behind that carbon fiber dash. So gotta be careful. You can move these needles around. You just have to always remember with this model, you're going the opposite direction of rotation. If you go the actual rotation direction, you can mess up that little dial gauge that's in there. So you gotta be careful. Obviously they're not protected right now, so I do not want to mess this up. Alright, well, gauge cluster is working with our switch we use, so that is a bonus. Let it warm up, let the fluid circulate a little bit. Alright, let me show you guys what we were kind of checking here, I guess. Give you a little more of a visual so you understand. So obviously these gauges work down here. You can see we got vacuum boost and then we got oil pressure. So gauge clusters up here, get close to that, and then we've got our control unit down here, which has been rewired down here from the old steering wheel. So I'll give you kind of an idea of what we want to do. As you can see up there, let me get you in there close. We can go through all these gauges now, you know, and the important thing is I like to, you know, track apps. You've got all this stuff which we talked about, accelerator, timer, brake performance, line locks right above that. The car has to be warmed up and on level ground and stuff for that to be available. Lap timer, launch control. You know, we can go in here and set launch control RPM and go anywhere from 3,000 to 4,500. Just kind of cool stuff that obviously I want to, let's view and clear all this, that I want to utilize. So if you notice on the gauge cluster, we have no seatbelt warnings, we have no airbag warnings. That was kind of an issue because obviously we have no airbags, have all been pulled out. The seatbelt stuff has all been disabled because we're going to have harnesses, so I didn't want to have anything lit up in here. I I kind of did that by just going through modules, installing little diodes that resistors that simulated having airbags and stuff like that in. So the nice thing is we have no lights other than our brake, which is on, so should be pretty sweet. But let's mount this dash up here, fit these hoses, which I kind of fit already, and just get it exactly how we want it, and we'll start tacking in and building these side parts to complete the dash. So we got her rough mounted in here. I think the positioning right now is good on the dash. From the back, we're gonna probably pull this out a little bit, make sure it just overhangs these bottom panels a little bit. And now we can kind of start to build these patch panels and patch this all in, and down here and back there, and weld everything up there. But if you look at it, I think it looks good. The profile, that way we'll be able to wrap leather underneath this upper dash portion, and then all these panels come out and we can wrap these as well, and we'll cap those corners. We have to do some trimming to get these tweeters in for the speakers, but the general fitment of the dash in relation to these panels, I think this is how we want to do it. So only one casualty of war. Here's first lesson for everybody who is welding: wear appropriate clothes. I usually wear Nomex pants, and I didn't. I'm wearing my shorts, and yeah, I took that hot bead of fire right in the thigh. So that burned a little bit, but lessons learned. So let's pull the dash out, do some trimming, start making all our patch panels, and keep going. We're getting there. All right, we finally have the dash all fabricated up and tacked in. Looks good. Got all of our clearances. You can see with the doors shut how this comes into the passenger compartment. We kind of had to clearance it here and do everything. If you take a look, nice clearance. We'll tack all this and final weld everything up in here, but overall everything, I think, level height wise looks good. Did a lot of modifications to this dash. If you guys don't remember, I mean, we cut a large section off the entire bottom. Glove box was all filled. We did a rounded little bead radius with our bead roller on the bottoms. I mean, on and on and on. The cigarette or the ashtray was deleted. all this stuff to kind of make it look smooth, symmetrical, and flow. Again, the theme I wanted was I did not want to have this big boxy, blocky looking kit car stuff. And a lot of times when you're integrating old into this new modern interior that I have to work around, it starts to get blocky. So I think I avoided that pretty well. Only issue really is these panels are removable down here. This is gonna be our headlight switch. And this panel may be a little tricky to get out. We'll see. It's got a lip that kind of runs around this structure right here. But once we loosen this, I think this is flexible enough. We can kind of pop it out, pull this out and get it out. It does disconnect down there, or there's a recession down there, so we can pull it out, but a little tricky, but I think it'll work. Overall, the style looks good. We need to just kind of do some of the finish stuff on the gauge bezel and everything else to tie it in, but the dash is tacked in. That was a huge hurdle, getting that dash tacked in, and I think it looks really good. So the bodywork on the dash isn't perfect, but again, we're not just painting this, or this would definitely look janky, but you can kind of see a lot of the fillers and stuff. It's not perfect. You see scratch marks, but we're going to put a foam and then leather over the top of this, so you won't see any of that stuff. So I don't want to waste a whole bunch of extra time, you know, sanding it down to 1,000 grit, making it perfect, because we're just going to cover it anyway. So got our holes for our tweeters. You can see this side's got nice clearance too. And then when we open the door, we've got it here. So we'll final weld everything, but overall the dash, alignment, everything looks, I think, really good. So I think we have majority of the metalwork done now. There is some metalwork on the body that we still have to do. I do need to get a, what is it called, a slip roll, because I just need a nice gradual curve. So I think it's a slip roll that I need. I'm just going to get a little one, and we can use that to fix this body over here. That's really all we have left for metalwork. I do need to put the rear backup camera. I'm thinking mounting it right here, just in between the exhaust. So we'll drill a hole here and fit the camera so it's just flush right here before we start with bodywork. So I know I have a hole there, and I really want to get this thing in the metal coated in epoxy primer or some kind of etching primer to stop the rust. So it's just every time I'm touching it, you can see it's just leaving fingerprints and whatnot. So we got to sand down the whole thing and then put some kind of primer, etching primer on, direct metal primer, so I don't have to worry about the stinking rust. And then we can start all the body work. So we'll do the major stuff first, the obvious stuff, put some filler primer, and just, you know, that stuff is tedious. I don't like it, but I do want to get it all in the same color so we can kind of identify where the stuff is we need to fix. But other thing we kind of did, so I got the hinges mounted. I don't know if you guys saw that, but hinges are mounted, the new style. Work really good. Still have some work to do on the hood. And the actual latch, I was going to use these latches that just mount, you know, in the hood, and they're like the pin style, but this is actually the factory latch system. It's tied in this upper grill, which isn't supported. So had it in here, lines up perfectly. We got it all adjusted, and then I actually secured the bracket in this upper grill portion, which is really flimsy, and it just basically bolts in here and here. So when we're securing the hood to that, it flexes and doesn't move around. It's not a great option. So we put two little tabs down here on either side and welded to that 1-inch structure that the front clip is off of. And now she's super rigid, and we can use the hood to secure that. So when we do just get our first run of epoxy primer, or, you know, any directed metal primer, I'm not sure what I'm going to use. I have some stuff. I'm just going to use what I got. We're going to pull all this apart, basically the whole front end, and we need to hit this whole tub, the whole tub back here, and the front clip will be pulled off, and spray everything in the front, or spray all that tub and then all these front parts individually. So it's going to be a lot of work. I didn't want to pull it all apart until most of the metal work is done. I think we're there now. That the interior's there, we can blow everything apart, piece by piece and get all this bare metal like behind the hinges sanded down, and then epoxy primer everything, get it all one color, and then we can start, you know, reassembling it piece by piece once I have that on, and then make sure all the gaps good and doing all the other body work. So really we are looking pretty dang good. Unfortunately, it's all the little things that are kind of left now, including body work, which takes time. So we're gonna get this thing pulled apart, all epoxy primered, and it's gonna start coming together real good. The upholstery is going to get pushed until August, so I would really like to get this thing painted by the time it goes to upholstery. So it's gonna be deep impact blue on the outside, and I think I'm gonna paint the inside the same thing. I was going to do black, and then black seats, white stitching, all that stuff, all black interior, but upholstery guy kind of convinced me to do just paint it the same blue interior. So I don't know yet. Let me know what you guys think. I'm not good with colors a lot of times, so would a all black interior, painted black, look better with the blue exterior? Look up 2016 Mustang Deep Impact Blue. It's like a dark blue. That's what color the outside's gonna be. Would that be better with deep impact blue on the interior with black leather, black Alcantara, white stitching, and there's white stitching in the seats? Or just do blue outside, blue inside with the black leather and white stitching? So I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you guys are have any opinions on that. So other than that though, made good progress today. The interior is pretty much knocked out, which was the big crutch of this build. So interior's done, chipping away a few bodywork things, and we're gonna be driving this thing in color, and it's gonna be done here this summer. So I'm excited about it. But as always, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, subscribing. I love the interactions, and till next time, God bless and long live hot rodding.